Thank you, Brenda. I am so excited to see all of you today. Today is International Day of Happiness that was started by the United Nations because they believed that wellness and happiness should be universal goals. I started the Silver Lining series, especially for people who were struggling with life's character builders to give you inspiration and hope. It gives me great pleasure to introduce today my wonderful friend and colleague, Dr. Rustin Moore, who is Dean, our fabulous Dean of our College of Veterinary Medicine. I'm sure you will be very inspired by Rustin's talk. Take it away, Rustin.
Well, thank you very much, Brenda and Byrne, for this opportunity. And I will start by saying that you probably can tell from the title that none of this happened here in Ohio. So this all happened while I was at Louisiana State University School of Veterinary Medicine, which is why the subsequent slides will be in purple, because giving tribute to them, and that's where I first developed the topic. So I'm going to go pretty quick because I'd like to give people some time for questions. So basically, the whole thing about this is a team approach. This is not about me. It's about a number of different organizations and their personnel, both at LSU, both in the Louisiana Veterinary Medical Association, others in the equine community there, and then a lot of volunteers. You can see all told about 500 that participated in some way, as well as donors. This is a general timeline of when Hurricane Katrina came. If you remember, it initially touched base in Florida and then went back out into the Gulf and then came again and hit as a Category 3 storm in New Orleans and did a lot of damage. I happened to be in West Virginia visiting my parents just by chance and was not there on the 29th. I was watching it all unfold on television. I did fly back just by chance the next day. I was one of the last flights to get back in for a period of time. And then very quickly after that, you can see the timeline starting on August 31st, which is really just a couple days later, we started the whole process, and I'll go through that. So we had identified in advance this large agricultural expo center called Lamar Dixon. It was probably about 20 minutes south of the School of Veterinary Medicine, and therefore probably about 40 minutes north of New Orleans, which is where the storm hit. On Thursday, September 1st, we had one of our faculty, Dr. Dennis French, was assigned to coordinate the veterinary services there. Bonnie Clark, who was president of the Louisiana Equine Council, was asked to coordinate the actual shelter part. And then I helped establish the LSU Horse Hurricane Helpline, which you'll see was a 24/7 hotline for a number of weeks. And the first load of horses arrived at the shelter on that same day. This was sort of the command center that was set up in the School of Veterinary Medicine. It happened really quickly. And you can see a variety of people there taking calls. This was 24/7. But you can also see maps of South Louisiana and even in other parts. And everywhere one of those red stickers is where people who were calling in were reporting either sightings of horses or people who had horses telling us where they last left the horses, so that we could start to develop some processes and logistics for how we might go in and rescue these horses. So again, established on the 31st, we continued that for a month. And then we turned that over to the Louisiana State Veterinarian's Office. We fielded countless calls for all hours of the day, particularly for those first couple of weeks, about horses that people knew were stranded, owners inquiring about had anybody found their horse, because when owners left, they didn't take heed early enough, and when they had to evacuate, they evacuated quickly and weren't able to take their large animals and even some of their small animals. And so there were people calling in wanting to help, as well as those people who were wanting to be helped. Lamar Dixon, there was a 300 stall. We set it up as a 300 stall satellite equine veterinary clinic because that's how many horses we were anticipating coming in. So it required everything from husbandry to cleaning the stalls to making sure we had the necessary medical supplies, and then having the personnel there to take care of them, sometimes 24/7. So I went down one day. I was called and I was asked to come down there because they needed a veterinarian to go into New Orleans to bring out 4 or 5 horses. I hurried down there. I got there. There were like 5 veterinarians standing around. I sort of asked, "Why do you need me?" I said, "I don't think you need me to bring back 5 horses." And so they went off on their own. But by staying back, I asked a question, which was, or maybe I made a statement about, if this doesn't get a bit more organized, this is going to be highly unsuccessful, which was not my asking them to take charge, but by saying that, they anointed me to take charge. So I did. And for the next 2 months, really, my second full-time job was trying to coordinate rescue teams that would go in. So I would spend my day and late into the night trying to map out where these people might go the next day. And so we'd send 1 to 7 teams out daily. A team would consist of anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 or 7 people, with a caravan of horse trailers and other things, depending on how many horses we anticipated needing to bring out. And sometimes it might have been 1, and others it was 4 or 5 trailers. And it just depended on what was in the area and what we knew we might need to do. So these were just some of the rescue teams, some of them that went in as they were departing with empty trailers, and then some of them coming back with alive horses that they had rescued. On any given day, we would rescue between 2 and 70 horses. After Hurricane Katrina, we rescued horses from 7 different parishes, what we would call counties up here. Some from floodwaters, you can see there, those are horses that were actually rescued. Some from other really severe situations, numerous types, breeds, sizes, horses and ponies. And then you'll see later some other animals. But we also, if you remember, Hurricane Rita hit only about 2 weeks later in southwest Louisiana. So we repeated the same thing. Didn't set up another specific shelter out there. We used the same one, but rescued about 80 horses from that. So all told, about 500 horses. These are some of the rescue team outcomes. You can see horses just loose on the street, loose on the levee of the Mississippi River, and in many other locations. You can see horses that were packed into these trailers sideways to be able to fit them in and get them out of there. The one in the picture in the lower left with the looks like army fatigues, that was actually coming across a ferry across the river down in Belle Chase area of Louisiana. We also didn't discriminate. There was a whole group of people there from all over the U.S. rescuing all types of animals. We were the only ones rescuing horses. So we played a relatively small role in rescuing dogs or other animals. But if we went into an area and we weren't able to rescue horses, and there were dogs or other animals, we brought them back. And what we would do is we would haul stuff in to the areas, whether it's food, water, fuel, other things, or even dog crates, dog kennels, dog food, etc. And then we would haul out the animals. So we did rescue ourselves, the equine group, about 300 dogs, which was a fraction of those that were rescued by other groups. And then we also rescued a variety of other species. You can see a pot-bellied pig and some goats and a bird and several other things. So this was a nonstop, lasted about 10 weeks. So basically at the Lamar Dixon, it was a very well coordinated and organized effort, not so much in the beginning, but it became that way very quickly. And we had a protocol for when they arrived to make sure we got the right information, where what part of Louisiana they were actually rescued from, describe the property. So our whole goal was to be able to successfully reunite these horses or ponies or other animals with their owners after this, if we could do so. And so there was a whole process from arrival to unloading to identification, making sure we provided shelter, food, water, veterinary care, making sure they got exercise and also got bathed, because many of these horses have been standing in water, whether it's up to their knees or higher. And remember, because the water and it flooded, there was a lot of contamination of water, particularly with petroleum. And so we had to make sure they were bathed to get that off of them. So we had a whole command center at the school, and then a number of veterinarians and staff down there. And so we were in constant contact. Thank goodness at that time we had phones that had direct talk, as well as the cell phone feature. And so you can see we were in contact on a regular basis. We also integrated our students in this, and this became part of their learning during that 10-week period. And that was a really valuable experience. And then we had a number of well, you can see here a number of medical issues and problems that these horses had, everything from lacerations, puncture wounds, fractures, but also superficial abrasions and skin irritation from the floodwater that I mentioned. And those are just a few of them that you can see there. Some of the next slides I'm going to show are pretty grim and pretty devastating, so I warn you, but I think it's important to show you what our rescue teams encountered because of the compassion and empathy fatigue that took upon them. So these are just damage to some of the barns where the water just went right through them when the water came in and then went back out, or if the water came in and it stayed, because New Orleans is sort of like a bowl. And if it broke the levee and got over the levee, then it came into the area which is of lower elevation. And so that's why the flood waters did not recede nearly as quickly as they might in other areas. But this is just some of the property damage. You can see these two relatively large boats on the lower right. The water took them up out of the river and landed them on the levee, and that's where they came to rest. So you can see the power and force of that water. There was loss of life. This was not all happy. There were horses that were found dead out in little paddocks. You can see one in the upper right. It looks like it ended up in a yard with fence around it. That's not where the horse was kept, but that's where the horse ended up. The horse on the upper left, the gray horse, that horse was found alive, but had a fractured tibia, which is the upper bone, or one of the main bones in the right on the rear limb, and needed to be euthanized or humanely destroyed. But you can just see the devastation. These are even worse. These are pictures of horses that were basically in the barns and couldn't get out, or most of them. And so what we notice is with horses in stalls, many of them had what are called Dutch doors, which is a door that's about halfway up. It doesn't go all the way to the top of the stall. And so many of them, the large horses, couldn't get out when the water rose, but some of the smaller ones, the ponies or the miniature horses, we believe they swam up over the Dutch door and were able to get out, where the larger horses were stranded and stuck. There was also, these were cattle. There was a guy who had about 200 herd Charolais cattle down in very southeast Louisiana. He had 23 horses, all beautiful paint horses, and he had 200 Charolais cattle. He never could find one of his paint horses, even the remains of it. So it's anticipated when the waters came in and went out, they went with it. And he only found about 70 of his 200 Charolais cattle that were alive. And a few of those ended up needing to be euthanized because of injuries. And one of them you can see is stuck in the tree limb. That horse or that cow was obviously dead, as well as the one in the distance of the guy walking toward that. But there were a lot of happy reunions. And I will say I only took place myself in one rescue because I was the one trying to coordinate the logistical teams going in every day into these different areas, and then helping plan for the next day of getting them out. But these are some of the happy reunions, and there were many. And there were people of all walks of life who these animals meant so much to them. And in many cases, the horses and other animals that survived might have been the only thing that they recovered from their house, their property, their farm. Their homes were destroyed, the things in their homes were destroyed. And so this was really the lifeline or connection to them and their where they lived. The two gentlemen here were sort of heroes, Darnell and Lucian. You can see Darnell there on his paint horse. That's in the floodwaters of New Orleans, very early after, I think it was the first day, he was riding out into the city on his horse to check on people and other horses, including horses that were kept in the New Orleans carriage companies down there as well. I show you this horse. This horse's name is Duncan, and this horse was owned by a young lady who had just moved from Oregon to Tulane University and brought Duncan with her to New Orleans. And her father called the hotline multiple times, checking on this horse. She had evacuated to North Carolina prior to, but of course couldn't take Duncan. And he sent us a picture of this horse with when she was jumping this horse. This horse looked nothing like this horse now. This horse in the picture was a very bright bay horse, which means that instead of that faded out sort of grayish brown on his hair, it was really rich orangish brown. But he had this unique mark on his forehead, and they kept calling, and you can see that little mark. I hope you can see right up here, almost like a star-shaped or a sheath-shaped white mark. And that was seen in the picture, but for days and days and days, we kept hearing back from our people at the Lamar Dixon that nope, this horse, they had no evidence that this horse had been rescued yet. One day I went down to just check on things, and I was walking the stall lines, and there were 400 horses down there. And I saw this horse, which looked nothing like the picture of the horse because it was thin, it had lost weight from being stranded. But then I saw that star on its, or that marking on its forehead, and I looked back at the picture, and I was able to actually send this picture to the father. This horse was reunited, as many of them, almost all of them were, but this horse stayed for about a month in Louisiana to get rehabilitated, to have the strength to be able to be shipped back to Oregon. We had these, a lot of what our team did was coordinate volunteers, donors, and services. You can see some of those there. We also coordinated transport back for these horses to their homes or to wherever these people had relocated, because like their horses, their trailers got flooded or got damaged, as did other things. So we really did a lot of coordination for them. We even worked with the various military, and in this case, I think it was the, trying to remember now which organization it was, but we worked with a number of them and flew over these areas in helicopters to do reconnaissance. And you can see on the levee there, these horses were considered safe and they had grass. And what they did would they would haul in water, but these horses, they actually didn't rescue because they seemed to be doing okay. We did a lot of humanitarian aid, food, water, clothing, generators, fuel, and many other things that we would haul in. This gentleman here on the left, Louis Palmas, was a hero, which I'll talk about later. And then the guy at the upper right, he owned a little store that also got damaged, but this was sort of the place that we and others would help take food and water and ice and other things, and he would distribute it to those. About 10 of the 400 horses did have to be hospitalized at LSU in our hospital due to injuries that were worse or illnesses that were worse than what they could handle down there. Again, our veterinary students played a vital role. Volunteers played a vital role in doing almost anything you could ask. Some people came in from out of state wanting to be the heroes and sort of went rogue, and that's when I had to sort of say, you either play as part of the team or you don't play as part of our team and you won't be involved. And some people, said, we came here to rescue horses, not dogs. And I said, well, today we're rescuing dogs. So if you don't want to rescue dogs, you cannot go. So the outcome, all but about 500 of them were rescued. Sorry, all but one of the nearly 500 rescued were identified. and we were able to successfully relocate or reunite them with their original owners, or we fostered them with someone else until we could arrange to have them reunited, and we provided the care for them, and all of them, for the most part, got back to their original owners. We learned a lot of lessons about pre-storm preparation, recommendations to horse owners, how to organize a rescue operation, a lot about team building, and then learned that many people can rise to the occasion and challenges. So the lessons learned were really around animal response activities have to be coordinated, preferably using the incident command center or incident command system. Communities have to work together. ICS is really important for successful disaster response. Ideally, that would happen before a disaster, not during or after. And the animal owning public and the animal care professionals have to develop an evacuation plan and heed to it for their families, pets, and other animals so that this type of thing wouldn't happen. The other lessons learned were permanent forms of animal identification need there. So whether it's tattoos or whether it's microchips, and thankfully, Louisiana was ahead of many states at that time for that permanent identification, which helped us reunite the horses and other animals with their owners. And then the other thing is around disaster responders have to realize the immediate goal is to provide basic animal medical and husbandry needs. And if you can take care of them in place, that's fine. If not, you need to rescue them and get them out of there. So the experiences gained for me was around crisis management, team building, organizational skills, how to manage a large, diverse group of people that many of them hadn't worked together and didn't know anything about the process, emergency planning, communicating with a lot of variety of different people and agencies, and then how to prioritize. So we did celebrate closure of the Lamar-Dixon Equine Shelter after about 10 weeks. We actually had a little party there and most everybody not everybody, but those who could participate came, and we sort of christened it and said, you know, this is where we worked. We hope we never have to come back here, but we thank them for the facility. There were 2 awards awarded. One was to Louis Palmas. It's down on the lower side. He received the White Horse Award that year from the Racetrack Chaplaincy of America for the heroics he played. I don't have time to go into all of them, but if you read about him online, he was really a hero. And then the whole group of people that took part in this received the Heroes for Horses Award that year. I happened to be the one that went to Louisville to receive it, but that was not an award for me. It was an award for the whole team. Here's some pictures of things that just unique things happening of horses stranded, a dog on a fence, a bird in a truck. And so lots of really unique things happened. So the silver linings for me, and I'm not going to read all these, but I think there were a few silver linings for the whole process. One was about legislative action that happened, and the tragedy of Katrina and Rita led to the Pets Evacuation and Transportation Standards Act of 2006, which mandated that state disaster preparedness plans in the future had to include pets in their provisions and for service animals, ensuring their safety. And the reason for this is many of the people that did not evacuate for fear of not being able to take their pets. And so since they're part of the family, they're considered family members, we felt like we had to do that. Unity of the community was the silver lining. Improved disaster response. Really, this helped us. We wrote some papers and got that out there so that these things could improve over time. Recognition of the human-animal bond and really how powerful and strong that is, and what kept some of these people from evacuating, and really why it's so important to include the animal in the evacuation process. We learned a lot there. We also learned, again, how to share information, whether it's through journals, books, and online stories, which really resonated. And here are my silver linings. I felt like in a moment of helplessness, and I really did feel that way. When I got there, I thought, what can I do? It seems so big. And so I think that unsolicited opportunity to help turn something that was really, really, really bad into something better. And also it helped, whether it was rescuing and reuniting or whether it was bringing closure to people and their families, that was a really important thing to me. Gave me an opportunity to meet a lot of incredible people that I continue to stay in contact with today that I didn't even know before that. And in the heat of the moment, in the face of adversity, remember, take solace in what you can do and contribute to the greater good of humanity and the impact you can have. And then the other thing is, I'd say we all have issues and areas for which we need to work. And I encourage everyone to turn the tables and focus on how you can turn these challenges and vulnerabilities into positive change for others. So in closing, I say my perspective is that I'm so thankful for the opportunity to have met so many dedicated and compassionate people who came together around a cause, and I continue to stay in touch with many of them. And I would say also this was a very enriching, life-changing experience that I would never want to trade in, but one that I would never want to go through again or care to repeat it or wish anyone else had to do so. So with that, I'm going to close. I'm going to stop sharing, and we have a few minutes, hopefully, to take a few questions.
Oh, Rustin, thank you so much. That was such a great presentation, so powerful. And we're just so glad that you shared this story when you are a health athlete facilitator for us at one of our leadership health athlete workshops, that we were able to find you and be able to have you share with us. And it seems that it is one of your themes. You are so well known in the College of Veterinary Medicine for being the model, to be the model. And it sounds like you started to find best practices and be the model even back then, that may have informed some of your leadership now. So thank you. And yes, let's just see if there are any questions. Folks, you can go ahead and type in a question in the Q&A or even in the chat. I believe we're able to see that. We had one person, they had their hand up. Rasana, if you want to raise your hand again, we can bring you up. See if we have any audience questions. We're pretty close on our time. We'll wait as we get some questions, but right, Rustin, let me ask you too, and you shared very thoroughly as far as many of your life lessons and things. Did this increase your confidence, and did it inform your trajectory into leadership? Here you are, the Dean of the College of Veterinary Medicine. Would you say it affected you that way?
Really great question. I was in some level of leadership at the time. I was the head of the equine section, the program, and also the director of the equine health studies program. So I was already involved in some level of administration, but not at the level of a leader of a department or college. Yeah, I would say that the lessons learned were lessons that I have taken with me and built upon. And part of that's around teamwork, part of that's around understanding how you communicate with different groups of people, that you do have to prioritize, that you do have to take charge in some cases. Otherwise, if there wasn't organization around this activity or series of activities, it would have been complete chaos and we would not have been as successful. But I want to leave people with the idea that this is not about me. This is about a whole group of people who were passionate and compassionate and caring, and they wanted to do something. And for the most part, they did what they needed to do, whether it was cleaning out stalls, walking horses, bathing horses, rescuing horses, working the hotline. People did what they needed to do. So it still gives me chills thinking about the people and what they were willing to do. Many of the volunteers themselves had been impacted by the hurricane. And so, and they might have had complete loss of property, et cetera, but, some of them took the opportunity to give back and participate.
Yes, selflessness, my goodness. Well, I am not seeing a question. We are at time, and I do want to thank you, Rustin, and thank you all for attending. As you exit, there will be a short evaluation that we kindly ask you to complete. A recording will be sent out to everyone within the next 48 hours. Once again, thank you all. Thank you, Rustin.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the audience. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me by email and be happy to talk about it.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.